What up, friends and frenemies? Welcome back, or welcome to the first time if you've not been here before. This is a channel where we apply logic and convictions to news, politics, culture, whatever is going on in the world. I'm C. Scott, and this is my view. So today we're going to talk about the recent shooting of Duante Wright, I believe is how you say his name, a few days ago in the state of Minnesota. Unless you've been under a rock, you've probably heard about it. Probably heard that there have been riots in Minnesota, and you've probably heard that another racist shooting of a black man is caused by bad policing and all these other things. So here we have yet another event that people are trying to use to say things and use this for a cause and use this event to say that other things should happen. But as I like to do, I want to look at this event and see if it is what they say it is. And we can also see if it should be used the way they say it should be used. So the reporting we have so far is constantly mentioning the fact that a black man was killed by a white police officer, which is supposed to immediately imply that there is some racism or the ethnicities of both parties having something to do with the young man ending up dead. The victim was a 20-year-old. He was driving in his car. He got pulled over because he was riding dirty. He had expired tags in his car. They pulled him over and they ran his information and stuff like that, apparently. And then they went to the car to make the arrest because he had a warrant out. He had a warrant out which was issued in their area because he was caught with a firearm which was illegally possessed because he's not of age to own a handgun. So he had a handgun on him at some point. He got caught with that. And maybe this is a slight against the current pushes to have bail reform and how certain crimes are just kind of given a slap on the wrist or very low bail so they can get out and come back later. I don't know what the case was for him in particular, but he had a felony warrant out for having a illegal handgun or illegally having a handgun on him. And it also believed that the warrant said that he had fled the cops previously. So I don't know exactly how much of the information the police had, but they did know that he had a felony warrant out. If you go see the video, which you need to go and see because I don't have the skills yet to put the little video in the window and stuff like that. But when you watch the video, you'll see that there are 3 cops in attendance. There are 2 occupants of the vehicle, the driver who is the suspect and also ends up being the victim. There's a passenger in the car, one officer on the right side going and talking to the passenger of the car. And then you have an officer who appears to be trained. Now, part of this that I'm going to tell you, I want to look at it from the angle of what we can learn. I always want to find out what we can learn from events that have happened. We can see things that went well, things that didn't go well, so that we can make decisions for our future that'll give us the best outcome. So when you watch the video, you'll see the officers going up, to the car. Young man gets out of the car, starts to be detained, or they get ready to put handcuffs on him. He jerks and pushes away and does all this stuff trying to get back in the vehicle. For what? God only knows, but he gets in the vehicle, and in doing that, an officer who's on the scene, which most of the videos you see is from her body cam. You hear her say taser, taser, taser. You see a gun in her hand, and she fires one shot, and then the video ends where she's like, oh my goodness, I shot him. The other cops are looking confused and dumbfounded, and the car drives off down the street. So he goes a couple blocks and then he dies, which is very sad, very unfortunate. I'm definitely praying for the family, and it's not something that you would ever want to happen. But let's look at the event kind of detail by detail and see how we got here, if it is racist like they say it is, and also, again, what can we learn? So first things that we need to look at and learn is the fact that my man had a felony warrant out. So he was going to be arrested. He was going to go to jail because he had already broken laws, been caught for that. And then he didn't do what was necessary. Why do you get warrants out for your arrest? You get warrants out because you've been released and you didn't go to court when you were supposed to. So you break one crime that you get charged for, whatever, and you're supposed to go to court. And then you break a second one by not appearing when you were supposed to appear before the judge. So now he gets pulled over for tags, and you also might see something about some little air fresheners for the car or some junk like that he was going to buy. He got shot because he was going to buy an air freshener, which is a bunch of, bacon sandwich. So he has a warrant out, and so he gets ready. He gets out of the car, and he gets ready to comply, and he's starting to do what he's told, and he starts to get handcuffed. And so when he gets handcuffed, at some point, he decides that he doesn't want to go to jail, and that's when he starts to resist, push off, and fight with the officers, and that's what starts this whole thing. So the first thing that we need to know is that, one, this is not an incident of racism. His race has nothing to do with it. The cop's race has nothing to do with it. It's two people that were caught up in an unfortunate situation. The other thing that we're presented with in this event or this situation is that, either the guy shouldn't have resisted and it was okay for them to use force and you get what you deserve when you do that, or it was just racism, it was bad policing, and none of that ever should have happened. You've also heard stupid things like from the mayor of the area that says that cops shouldn't carry guns when they pull people over, which is ridiculous because just over the weekend, I believe in Nevada, there was a cop who pulled somebody over. He saw that person had a weapon. He talked with that person about the weapon, and he was very nice. He didn't get all belligerent, didn't call 14 other cars and stuff like that. And the guy got out and shot him with it and killed him. Now, mind you, we didn't get flags at half-staff for that or anything else pronounced by the president, but that's a whole nother thing. So the first things I start to see that are wrong, the most important thing that goes wrong is he decides that he doesn't want to be arrested and he starts to fight the cops. When you play stupid games, as I've heard, you get stupid prizes. You put your life in other people's hands when they're armed, especially, and you're not, when they're allowed legally to use force necessary. You put your life in their hands. So the first thing that we can learn is don't put your life in people's hands when it's not necessary. There are times that you may need to fight for your life, but this wasn't one of those times. And there are 100 different ways that this could have gone wrong. 6 ways from Sunday that he could have ended up dead or in a worse position than he was, not a worse position than being dead, but that he could have ended up in a much worse position that he should have been in, which was just to get arrested and to go deal with his warrant. He could have gotten away from the police and not been shot, but what if he did get tased as the officer originally wanted to do? He could have had physical complications from being tased. You don't know, how that affects different people. Tasers only work 50% of the time anyway. But he also could have gotten away, not tased, could have driven off and been in a high-speed chase, could have lost control of the car, could have hurt other pedestrians, killed pedestrians, or killed other people while he was fleeing from the police because they were going to arrest him for the warrant that he had out. They were going to rightfully arrest him for something that he had not taken care of before. Could have done all sorts of things, hurt all other types of people just because he was going to try to get away. So obviously, don't do that. Don't put yourself in that situation. If you think something is wrong, if you think the officer is racist, or you think whatever, it's much better for you to go to jail, get a lawyer, and fight it out than it is to get shot and killed and have other people having to hopefully fight on your behalf because you won't be there to see it. Second thing that we need to learn is about the police. There's been a big push over the last year and a half to defund the police. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, but we're supposed to defund the police. Well, when you defund the police, you decrease their opportunities for training. So what you see in the video is that it looks like a very new officer may have been on his first stop. I don't know that, but that's just what it looks like to me. They have this new officer going to arrest this guy, which I think was a bad idea. Again, I don't know how much information they had on the warrant, but I wouldn't send a new officer to arrest someone who had previously fled from police. But you see this new officer, he takes forever to get the guy in handcuffs, pulls him out of the car, but he leaves the car door open. He didn't have a good hold of the subject or the suspect. And so he's kind of fumbling around with his handcuffs and doing this and that. And if you watch the video, he has Mr. Wright there and he's getting ready to deal with him, but he's kind of fiddling with his handcuffs and stuff like that. He goes to put them on, and I guess Wright kind of tenses up or does something to imply that he's about to have a problem with this. And you see the officer pull his hand with the cuffs back, and then he starts to tell him, to calm down or not do that or whatever the case is. Then the female training officer kind of steps in, and then it just goes off from there. So if the original cop had good tactics was trained well or knew what he was doing, this situation probably wouldn't have ended this way, because the cuffs would have been on before Wright had a chance to fight them off, get away, and get in the car. Also, closing the door would have changed the dynamics of this event. So, there's issue there with what the first officer did. And then if you hear the officer saying taser, 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 that's what they're trained to do. They're supposed to tell everybody around they're about to use a taser so that nobody else gets shocked. But she grabbed her pistol. Now, this is a purely training issue. In my mind, this is not racism. It's not bad police that are bad because they want to hurt people and abuse their authority and power. But she was bad because she grabbed her firearm thinking it was her taser. But that's a training issue. Normally what happens in events is your heart rate shoots up through the roof. You get excited. She got overly excited for this. It was somebody who was kind of running away, but she really, she wasn't prepared for it. And obviously in her mind, this was a big deal. Everything was happening really, really quickly. You see that she has a piece of paper in her right hand. She was a training officer. I imagine that paper had stuff on it that she was reminding the guy that she's training, which is something in and of itself. But out of instinct, she grabs her firearm. When you carry a gun, you practice your draw. You practice when something happens that you can quickly get to your gun. People keep bringing up, how do you not know the difference between a taser and a firearm? A taser is yellow. It's on the other side. This, that, and the other. Those things don't matter. When you get into a stressful environment, science says and experience says, when you're in a stressful event or environment, your fine motor skills go down, you get tunnel vision, you fall back on your areas of training, and you don't think cognitively immediately. And so you just kind of go with your reaction. So her reaction, what she had practiced and trained before, was drawing her firearm and not her taser. That's why she was saying one thing, planning to do that thing, but she went for her weapon. It's a training issue. Apparently, she hasn't been trained well enough or long enough or recently enough to go for her taser when she wants to go for her taser. So again, I think you can't defund the police, because you want the police to have more training. The more training they have, the less mistakes that they would make. And this isn't the first incident where a cop has grabbed their gun and intended to grab their taser. And I imagine it'll happen in the future. Hopefully it won't have deadly consequences. And that's not an excuse to say, oh, it's not a big deal. It's very easy to confuse in the heat of the moment. I'm not saying that at all. The officer was wrong in this shooting. This officer should never, ever, ever be able to wear a badge and a uniform again, because she made a mistake. But that mistake cost somebody their lives. So you have the lawyer of the family of Mr. Wright saying it wasn't a mistake, it was intentional. And it was another word that he used, saying that it was intentional and that she meant to kill him. Now, one, that's only going to cause things to be further inflamed, which I'm sure he doesn't mind at all. And two, that's going to set up a difficult case going forward, because his point is that all this was intentional. So all the defense is going to have to do is prove or show that it was an accident. It should be easy to show that it was an accident because of what she said. Obviously, if you really look at it and you have an open mind, she thought she was going to tase him. What she said before the event, what she said after the event, the fact that she only pulled the trigger one time. When you're taught to shoot, you don't typically just pull the trigger one time. And all those things are indications before, during, and after the shooting. All those things indicate that it was a mistake or an accident. So the things that we need to learn are, it's not racism. It was somebody not complying, not being obedient to lawful commands from a police officer. It was police officers not having good training, not being up to date with where they need to be. And it culminated in the loss of life. I believe, maybe the family should get paid for wrongful death by the city, but I don't believe that you can convict this officer for murder. She should absolutely be fired. She should absolutely face a penalty. She'd probably go to jail. I would think something like negligent homicide but what they actually charged her with was second-degree manslaughter. I feel like second-degree manslaughter is going to be a stretch because it says that in second-degree manslaughter you have a culpable negligence and it creates an unreasonable risk and consciously takes chances of causing death or great bodily harm to another. She didn't consciously cause great bodily harm or do anything consciously that would result in death. So here you have all these same things repeating themselves. You have a non-racial incident turned into a racial incident. You have a DA quick to charge without seeing, without dealing with their own rules or using the evidence that's necessary to make charges. They make bad charges and they set up in the future for this cop to get off being acquitted because the charge doesn't fit the crime. And then you set up for more riots and things like that in the future, all because people don't want to be logical, because people want to use incidents that happened over here to be proof of things that are going on over there, conflating things that aren't related at all. So yes, the officer was wrong, but no, I don't believe it has anything to do with racism. And if you want to keep yourself alive, don't go back and forth. Don't disobey people that have the rightful ability to use force to get you to comply. So hopefully their family will recover for both sides. But it'll be interesting to watch and see how much it goes on. Don't allow anybody to tell you that this is more racism, systemic this or that. It has nothing to do with a bad system or the fact that we need to get rid of police. It was an accident that was brought on by stupidity. Hopefully we can all learn from it and have a better tomorrow. That's it. That's all I have to say. I'm C. Scott, and that's how I see it.